everyone. Welcome to our Music Entrepreneurship Departmental. I am thrilled to introduce our guest speaker for today. Oh my goodness. I have had the pleasure of following Gigi Johnson's trajectory throughout the years. I've encountered her in multiple conferences throughout the country, and I've always been in awe of her work, of her drive, of her entrepreneurial spirit. And I am so thrilled to introduce her to all of you today. Thank you, Pedro, for facilitating the session. And so I am just very, very excited to welcome Gigi Johnson to our session. You must have all received an email with her links and all her materials. Hopefully, you had some opportunities to review all of that and you're ready for some questions. But yeah, without further ado, welcome, Gigi. It's so good to see you.
Hello, hello, hello. And I was just grilling Pedro on his life, and the fact that he's trying to finish up 3 different degree chunks right now, and I totally admire that. And I know you guys who are here in the call have all sorts of different journeys that you're on. Before I start talking, can you guys put in the chat what you want to be when you grow up? What you think you want to do when you grow up? I know that some of us have never grown up, but if you guys could put in the chat where you think you want to go, not first job, what do you want to do? We'll see how enthusiastic and diverse this group is. And put as much detail as you're comfortable with. So it's great. Eddie put a music producer. A music producer doing what? Singer-songwriter doing what? Mm. Yeah, Joe, great detail. Baritone saxophone in a military big band. Chorister working in a church. University professor and chamber music coach. Excellent. Now, here we've got hyphenates coming in, and we're going to be talking about that because chances are you won't be doing one thing, right? Oh, we have Tyler, own a restaurant when I retire after a musical or non-musical career. I have 3 adult kids. One of them swears when she's 42, she will own a bakery. I have no idea where that comes from. She wants to make all her money by 42 and then have a bakery and just bake for her friends. I'm not quite sure that works, but an international artist consultant. Excellent. All sorts of cool things going on in that space. Ethnomusicology professor and African music producer. Excellent. All good stuff here. Performing arts. I would be successful to my standards. That's a great part of the question. What is successful to our standards? And we'll be talking about that. Professional orchestra conductor doing innovative outreach and expanding the audience for the symphony. That's great, Callaway. University professor in something with management. Something with management. That always catches us, right? Something with management, trumpet player, all sorts of great things on the deck here. I'm on career 9. It might be 10 by now. So what I wanted to do is really thematically talk today, and I'll be asking you guys questions as we go about my nonlinear journey. But one of my core themes is that we all live nonlinear lives, but the story we buy in college, the box we buy that has the wonderful prize inside, going back to what is that called? Anybody put in the chat what it's called? Cracker Jack, Cracker Jack. Cracker Jack, you buy the box and there's a prize inside, right? So you guys are all on your educational journeys that you come in thinking, I will get X degree and I will become Y. And the reality of life is that doesn't happen. That happens for very few people. And people say, well, back in the day, that used to happen. Well, no. I mean, maybe my parents both were the equivalent of job shoppers, that they would work for a company but get lent into other companies, never had a pension, etc. The arts tend to be, and the creative arts tend to be really different than what career centers are necessarily happy with, getting you that entry level management or whatever it is job at a company. You have kind of signed up be an entrepreneur, be someone who wants to be a performing artist, be both, to building the plane as you fly it, to moving ahead in an arena that's going to be different over time. There was a great study done in the Washington, D.C. metro area a year ago, October. So it's like pre-pandemic, during pre-pandemic, they did a presentation and they interviewed 500 musicians in the greater Washington, D.C. area. And these are professional musicians who were making some money doing something, not as much playing in their living rooms. That's great too, but professional musicians making money playing out. 40% of them had one job. Everybody else had multiple jobs that were part of their kit bag. And it wasn't that they were barista and musician, barista and trombone player in a group, that they had multiple creative jobs that were feeding different parts of their skill groups and souls, that they could play back and forth as the market and business moved, that gave them additional skill sets, but also gave them security to have things like, oh, I don't know, a mortgage, family, etc. So I'm going to talk a bit today, if that's the drive we want to go down here, about my journey and why I have this belief in nonlinear careers and some of my tidbits, and also pieces of stories that I have that I've gathered. So I've been producing a podcast as well as everything else I do for about 5 years. 4 years of one called Innovating Music, which you can find on all the podcast players with about 80 episodes, and one now called Creative Innovators, which is on episode 22 now, which interviews people about their lives as creative innovators. The first batch is all in the music space. The second batch also includes people in VR and people in using technology for anti-poaching in Africa and all sorts of other pieces of the puzzle and music. So I encourage you after this, if any of these tidbits spark something, for you to go take a look and see if there's stories there that might give you inspiration. But it gave me inspiration. So is there anything else that you guys, given what you might have read about me or not read about me, that you want to make sure I cover? If it's so, pop it in the chat.
Yeah, Pedro has the list of questions probably that they all submitted. So we have a feed that they all, like whoever had questions, they shared them.
Cool, cool,
So
cool.
Pedro, if you would like, maybe you can just pop those questions in the chat so Gigi can be looking at them and tackle on them whenever she can.
Mm-hmm. And of course, glad to answer questions at the end or things that come in the middle. So it's all good. And we have till the top of the next hour. Is that our time frame here? But
Um,
people probably need to scoot out to classes.
Yeah, a little bit before that. Usually we try to finish at 11:50, but it's with flexibility. Again, technically it's till 11:50, but we can squeeze a few more minutes if there's enough time. If you're able to, our next class starts at noon. So yeah, we can literally close the Zoom and open another Zoom if we need to. So we're good.
Okay, so question themes. Ooh, cool. Did I focus on one field or a few? How do I start that way? Was the process of adding other fields? Is it overwhelming to have a career that involves different fields? How do you juggle all your business ventures without letting any fall behind? Stuff falls behind all the time. And is it hard to wear as many hats? And okay. So I will tell you my story. Now, I don't have slides. I'm doing something slightly more adventurous, and I already had showed Pedro. So I'll try to be on mic all the time. I'll move my mic and make fuzzy noises here. But I'm going to actually be drawing. You can't, take the whiteboard away from somebody who teaches. It's just really difficult. But I'm going to actually give you guys a prompt to, so if you guys can also, hold on. Now you see I already drew a face of me. This is kind of my self-image of myself here. But I was going to say, if you guys can think about this, and if you're a doodler while we go here, if you can, let me get a fresh piece of paper. Think about the story you tell of your life, right? So if your life is a timeline, oh, I need a better color than that. Green just fades into nothing. So I'll dry my life as I tell the story here. But if you had a timeline life of your life, how does that story go? Right. So for me, I there's a concept in career stuff called planned happen chance. It's a little bit of being at the right place at the right time, but it's like when the flag shows up, do you turn? Right. So for me, I've been, I'm 58. So my life is an interesting story here. But when I was 14 or 15, I was singing. And I was singing in a in anything from a jazz quartet to larger groups to madrigals, and I was out performing and I was doing theater and I was really great at math and science, and I thought I wanted to study the brain, right? So I thought I wanted to study the brain. And at the time everyone said, wait, everything has already been discovered about the brain. There's almost no jobs. It's so funny because now there's so much happening in brain science. But I was fascinated in brain and personality and how we make decisions. And so I thought I wanted to go in psychobiology. What the heck, right? And so I'm chugging along in psychobiology and I go to USC, got on scholarship. My parents were really poor. So my first decision path was, do I go to college and how? And so I had a scholarship show up in my life. So I could have gone to many different places and I had no money. I was accepted to MIT in biology, but couldn't afford to go. So decision number one was, do I take this full scholarship? And that's what I do. So I took the full scholarship and I went into biology at USC. But my background was all arts and creative work. So I had a dislocation that happened, right? So I took one film school class. And so back in the day, you guys get grades in Canvas or whatever that you get grades in, right? And that you get your grades and you might get a little comment from your faculty member, you get comments on your assignments. We had postcards. So we had these postcards that you would get with your grade handwritten on the postcard. And my TA in my film school class wrote at the bottom, had you thought of applying for USC Film School? And I thought, huh, that's an idea. And so that was a plan happen chance moment, right? That here came this postcard. So I tend to, because of that in my life, call them postcard moments. That something shows up and then you go, wow, that's an idea. Do I turn right or do I turn left? For those of you who are Doctor Who fans, there's a great episode about that. Do I turn right or do I turn left? So for me, creative arts is all my background stuff. And I thought, what the heck, I'll do film school. Now, I was lucky at the time. One of the pivots tends to be, what do your parents think? And it's a really interesting exercise to do the question of, what are the trajectories of your life with your own parents? In fact, I have my students do that because you don't always know where did your parents turn right or turn left, because they probably have nonlinear careers they don't want you to live, right? So to do this exercise with your parents is really great because you get to have that dialogue without them nagging at you about your career journey, about their career journeys, right? So for me, I had this tension in my life, and a lot of the people we've had on the podcast, we have this tension between creative arts and other things, or and family tension. Um, Make a comment in the chat if you have that tension in your planning life. Do you have a difference? Do you have a push and pull between creative and science, creative and parents' expectation? Is that part of your journey set? So I've got a yes with many S's in the chat bar there. this tends to be part of the understanding of that push and pull will help you make further decisions, because sometimes, things will, as I'll comment on, loop. It'll come back again. Um, I used to teach a lot in Spain. I go every year to Spain to teach a media management class. And uh, every year I'd sit down and have a dinner with a lot of the students in this master's program. And the other thing to think about is there's culture underneath of this. So all of these women would sit down and talk with me at dinner and say, in Spain, we're not supposed to change careers, even in the creative arts. We're supposed to go into one thing, and we come and get a master's degree so we can pivot. And in a lot of areas outside the arts, that is totally the issue. That if you look like you're job hopping a lot, that is seen as really a negative. So a lot of the young women would say, how have you changed careers so much? Because um, even in film and television, et cetera, that it was seen as to be a negative. So there is that baggage of the narrative about career. So here I was, and it's really normal in college, the average person changes degrees more than once, right? But one of the interesting factoids is only 27% of people in the United States have a career that matches their degree. So we spend all this energy thinking, what is my college degree? You know, lovely Pedro is having 3 different degree things he's putting together that you think in terms of degree nuggets, which may or may not count to much of anybody other than maybe the doctorate side and MBA side when you leave. So I was spending all this angst getting to the what is my degree. So I went to film school. My parents somehow this odd mythology that with a film school degree from USC, top film school, um, that I magically would have a career. So when I graduated, 200 applications. I tried to get in also to the Directors Guild Assistant Director Program, got at least to the final round interviews. And you have to also realize this is the 1980s. Um, all of my female friends went into being secretaries or assistants. All my male friends went on to grad school. That's changed a lot now, but most of my peers as females had a really difficult time getting entry level anything. I did what I was supposed to do. I did internships and all that stuff. So I ended up in advertising. I ended up being a square peg in a round hole in advertising. And then I went to a crooked film company. And then I went to a large PR agency. And I learned many things. So one of my big things is you'll learn what you don't want to do faster than you learn what you want to do. So internships are great for that. They're great for that in school. I wouldn't have wanted to go work for anybody that I interned for. But I was really frustrated trying to get seen as anything other than somebody's assistant, which is still an issue for a lot of music companies. Um, I became really good at marketing and data and systems, which wasn't part of my gestalt and my thought process, but I learned that stuff. So, creative background, thinking I want to do science, add up. I've got this weird montage of stuff. And so, what did I do? I decided um, I thought I wanted to go get an MBA. And so I'm a gigantic fan of getting an MBA. I was doing some creative work. I was singing at the time. I had done documentaries in film school. Didn't know what the heck to do with that because at the time, National Geographic was uh, putting money out, commissioning documentaries. I just wasn't getting any traction at all, which is not that abnormal. So I'd spent about 2 years kind of wandering around getting paid poorly, but at least paid. And I decided to go to business school. And I put very few bets on the table. I applied to USC UCLA because I could afford it. I was an in-state resident. And I applied to several other places that I could afford to go. I was, again, not very well off. And What's very interesting is I have a sister 2 years younger than me who was on a similar but different trajectory. A school I applied for and decided not to go to, she applied to. So, does this sound random so far? Does this sound unplanned? So, it's those decisions though that you make that are the people in this nonlinear journey with you. So we tell the story a lot about you build your resume, you build your skills, but what you're really building, whether it's in here at University of North Texas, whether it's in the clubs and things you're doing, it's not the classes, those will go away. It may or may not be the degree label on you, but it's the people you meet that are the left and right turns of your life. So I met my husband of 36 years in a student club at USC. And we were still hanging out here, both trying to figure our lives out. Um, a school I decided not to go to, I emailed to my sister who was looking what she wanted to do. She went to Brussels for school and then met her husband of 25 years. Now, I'm not meaning to say marriage is a pivot point, but it is the people that you are connected with. I've got 3 adult kids, and one is looking to transfer schools right now. And we keep telling our kids where you are builds the people who have the passions around you you're gonna work with. And so hopefully digitally you're looking right and you're looking left at your classmates, because that's actually what you're going to carry forward with you as your potential partners, creative partners, people who reach back to you in 10 years and say, I remember you from blah, blah, blah. I went to your senior recital. That was fabulous. I've got something else going on. So we work so hard for whether it's having minors or certificates or whatever, or that right internship, but it's the people that you meet. And sometimes you marry, but that's a whole nother story. So um, I went to business school. And this is where I kind of got a better framework as to how to think about what I wanted to actually do. And by this point in time, I had this mushy portfolio of creative work, technology work, learning marketing. And what do I do with that? So I actually spent some time trying to figure out, um, and the way I tend to frame it is it's not the job title, it's the verb and the object. So it's not the subject of this sentence. I am not and then you guys put great elements in your listing there. I'm not a singer-songwriter. I am, but I'm a singer-songwriter for whom on what, right? About what? What is my people? What is my sort of theme and activities in the world? Am I going to be of a conductor? I'm a conductor for who, where? What is the type of music? What is the action? What is the passion? What am I creating? And then you can build whatever you want around that theme set. For me at the time, I had weird biases about what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel. I wanted to have something in my life that let me go everywhere. And then I wanted to have kind of a cadre of people that I would connect with everywhere. So, what label you put on me for that, I cared less about it. It was much more of the who and the what of the work. So, I was really thinking about where did I want to go with this. So you get to a decision point, and so I'm going to go back to doodling on my page here. So I had all sorts of mushy stuff going on with marketing, etc. Yeah, I know I can't really write. My kids complain about my handwriting all the time. But I got to an MBA, and um, I have a lot of students in creative arts who say, should I go back and get an MBA if I'm going into management creative arts? I tend to say an MBA is great for two things. One is that I can sort of pivot. And the other part of it is that you can re-people. And you can also change place, right? So if you're East Coast and want to go west, if you're Texas and would like to go to Nashville, that an MBA or getting a master's is an idea for that, as I get red all over my hands. So for me, I really thought about the people story and thought about who I wanted to spend time with and the work I wanted to do in the world. So I had the metaphor of James Bond, not the movies, but the books that from his uh, work in the war, he knew people all over the world. And I thought, what can I do that builds a career that lets me travel and lets me see many things and doesn't stick me in office. And so, because I had this creative background and I now had sort of other quant side, and I found I loved finance. It's another one of those pivot things where I took a finance class and suddenly was like, oh crap, this is cool. And I'm really good at it. And there's storytelling around it. So for those of you who actually are good at numbers and storytelling, there's fascinating things to do for a living in that. And in fact, in the Creative Innovators podcast from 2 weeks ago, Chris Zaida, who was one of my classmates in business school, who I met, and our lives both pivoted from knowing each other, that he ended up going to Disney and doing all of their financial writing for a decade, became their assistant treasurer. That took him to Amazon and eBay and all this stuff. And now he's written his first novel. He was an English major. That there's things you can do that connect those dots that take, I'm really good at X and I'm really good at Y. And there's a space in between that lets me be really unique and fabulous. So I decided I wanted to find a great way to meet many people, be doing creative industries and money. Think of the Venn diagram of that, right? And so I decided to interview every CFO of every entertainment company I could talk to find out which bank would want someone weird like me. And so I wasn't asking them for a job, I was asking them about their banks. So I ended up having 50% of those people say yes and have a cup of coffee with me. And so by the time I went to actually apply for a job, that everyone already knew who the heck I was. There wasn't the current thing of I threw my resume in with 200 other people who want to do something cool. And I tell this to my students all the time at UCLA Music. You need to get out there so people know you and you figure out where you actually want to be before anything posts, before anything happens, before someone's looking for something. You want them to meet you and understand who you are. So when the digital door opens, you walk right in. And then it's more of a decision about fit and personality and not banking on all this stuff. So I ended up having it down to two banks. One was Security Pacific Bank and one was Bank of America. I got an offer for both. And not dissimilar to the Chris Zida story, I was able to walk in as a not a finance person and be able to travel the world working with companies, helping these creative companies in banking. Now, did this have anything to do with my singing? No. Did this have anything to do with my other creative work? Kind of, because I got the companies. I got what they did for a living. And there's so many boundary spanner type jobs, ones that are bridges between this world and this world, where that overlap can make you a lot of money for a period of time in your life. So I spent 10 years doing that. I got to travel the world. I got to work with a bunch of major deals. I got to meet my objectives, travel the world and meet cool people, that it checked both those boxes. But for that period of time, I got up to a senior vice president at the bank. The two banks I got yeses with ended up merging, so it would have made a difference on what my decisions were. But about 10 years in, I'd had 3 kids. Goodness gracious. And traveling the world and 3 kids is difficult. It was a lot of stress on my poor husband. I married that guy that I met back in undergrad, who had nothing to do with my work. And so I sat down and went back to my MBA program and talked to two of my good mentors there. And one of them said, hey, we have a job here running the comprehensive exam program, but working with companies all over the world. You should come and do that. And the other one said, hey, we have this job working with people all over the world. Don't take it. The job sucks. Okay. So 10 years in banking, had put aside some money, had kind of got the traveling out all over the world out of my system. And I listened to both of them, and they were both right. The job, high stress, sucked massively. It was a bridge to get into academia. I did not have my doctorate at the time. And I was able to walk in from having my weird batch of experiences, but I made a decision based on 2 conversations. Put in the chat if you think that's a good idea. Do you turn right or left in your life based on 2 conversations? No. Just you wait on this. You are going to turn right or left based on a conversation. Okay. So at this point in time, I went into the world of academia. And for those of you who would like to be professors, I'm a gigantic fan of informational interviewing, right? To sit down and talk with people, not as much about what does this job do, but what is the environment? What are the people like? What is, and so if in banking, if someone doesn't like you, they probably have told you, and they probably have gotten into your face directly, and then you deal with it. I found out a week into academia, and every place is different, that someone was trying to get me fired the very first week, went 3 levels over my head to the dean, and I didn't know it for 2 years. Academia is an interesting beastie, yes? So, yeah, I'm always talking to people who would like to come teach at UCLA, and UCLA can be a charming and wonderful place. And I've taught at about 4 schools at UCLA in the past 21 years. Um, there is the impression, though, that the latter faculty are the most beautiful and wonderful people in the entire world, and that everybody is kind of at odds for resources and is trying to publish to get promoted, or in creative sectors to be able to do creative work to get promoted. And it tends to be a bit on the insular side of life. So I've actually had a wonderful time in 21 years, standing between academia and the outside world. Standing in academia, working on average half time, and doing creative work, creating early YouTube channels in 2004 before YouTube even existed, building out all sorts of creative practices, a small label, um, because I basically said, I want a place to stand and a place to create. I would like to be a hyphenate, and I would like to stand in a place where I can have some community and resources and teaching students, and be able to work with fabulous people in the world that lets me travel. And so in my head, it's not the I want a single label, is I would like the verb and the subject to be flexible and expansive. And if someone says, we don't want to run your program anymore, that I have a portfolio of stuff. So one thing I would like to recommend, if this sounds like a life you may want to have, that you would like to have a moving portfolio, there's a great TED talk or TEDx talk by Emily Wapnick, which I strongly suggest to people, which is, what if I can be everything? What if I can be a hyphenate and doing multiple things in my life over time? And she has a really great book called I think it's called What If I Can Be Everything, that on her research, it's the different patterns, because some people are like me, that they'll iterate over time, that they'll maybe have 3 to 5 years doing something, and then they shift gears and shift gears. But a lot of people might be artist architect. They might be different things that they take 20% of their life here, 50% here, or it ebbs and flows. And she's sort of mapped out the types of things. Now it's interesting because when you go put your resume into Indeed or you go apply to be part of an orchestra, they want to see you be a box. They want to see you be X. And so there's a tension in the world as to the most people I know are actually increasingly hyphenates in the arts and creative businesses, but the boxes that you fill in kind of ignore that journey step. How do you tell the story of how you make decisions and where you've been? How do you build a portfolio? How do you tell this? So, uh, for me, over the past 20 years, I have been on probably 15 boards. I have been, I have traveled the world. I'm on the advisory board for South by Southwest now for about 7 years. I have taught in Abu Dhabi, in Spain, in China. But this is that tension. It is a tension with the norms of university view about what a career is. It's at norms with people who think, are you trying to take my job by working with my company on this one project? That there still is the social and societal norm that I am just X, and there is tension in that piece, and then there's the storytelling question. How do other people understand me, right? So I've been going through a transition myself, that I have been going through the tension of 21 I am a 58-year-old woman. Yay. And so what do I want to do in my next career phases? My kids are all grown. They're in two different states, three different major metropolitan areas. Um, what do I want to be building? So I'm sitting down Thursday with my chair to negotiate my retirement. What is a retirement, right? So for those of you who looked at what I'm doing, I'm teaching half time and I'm actually about to move to Washington State. The university thinks in the box pre-pandemic of classes are live and local. I've been bringing people in from all over the world via Skype and Zoom pre-pandemic. I've been teaching all over the world with students all over the world the past year. I am pitching to continue this from Washington State. I also, though, because I know so many people, again, the James Bond knowing people all over the world goals in life, that when the pandemic hit, I ended up with Storm Glore from University of Colorado, Denver, invited everyone we knew to what became the Amplify Music Conference that we created from scratch because we knew so many people. So we're doing that again, April 21st through 23rd, where we have 200 music creators, executives from all over the world we're pulling together. We're working with 42 organizations, and this doesn't fit in either of our academic institutions. So it sits in a nonprofit I started 2 years ago. And all of this is because it's not the box. It is the what is the verb in the world and what is the work to do. And I know many, many people who live this life that is a cross box life. And I've only done 2 albums, about 8 years of concerts now in the creative side of this. I've built a bunch of YouTube channel and online video. I'm a member of the Recording Academy and the Interactive Peer Group at the Television Academy. And I'm not waiting for someone to hand me a box. So I'm gathering all these stories from other people who live a nonlinear life. And a lot of them are my friends that I love being around these people. They inspire me. So I've got anything from a great interview with Arabian Prince, who's become a friend through all this. He tells his story about how NWA got created, but how he's become a technologist. And he's run, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 businesses through all of this, through his background. Sasha Samoshina, who started out as an artist but became a she does all the VR AR work with JPL NASA, including with Perseverance recently, who've taken these Venn diagrams of a life and have built their own boxes. So um, that's my elongated, rambling, but somewhat linear narrative. Uh, but it frustrates the heck out of me for the people who are coming out of school still and are buying the box story. And so I've created nextcareer.me as a place you can go. In fact, we're kind of bridging to another platform in it where you can kind of go through some workshopping to kind of how do you tell your story? How do you look at your skills? How do you think about who you want to play with and build your tribe? Because I'm finding and it might be great where you guys are. You probably have a kick-ass career center for creative arts, but a lot of folks um, have a hard time telling the story to themselves. So wanted to offer that tool. It's right now free to be doing some of that stuff. But Pedro, what questions have I not addressed from the questions in that elongated rubber band of a conversation?
Thank you, Gigi.
Let's
This has been great. I just wanted to thank you in between this little pause here. And everyone, you just definitely check out this website, nextcareer.me. Pull it up as we're going through this because there's so much gold in here, and all the links to her podcast and everything is there too. So make sure you check that out.
And I'm going to also add in the chat, the other thing is there's so many resources in music. And I think this is the right one. So I put together a Google sheet with so many music career links. So if you're thinking about what am I doing, also amplifymusic.org has an events page that we've put together all these virtual events you could go to while you're a student, mostly for free, to meet all the people doing the crazy ass things all over the world. So I think this is, so I'm going to, while we're talking, I'm going to pull up the link to make sure it actually works.
And the sheet, are you going to, where can we access that sheet you mentioned?
I am putting it right here.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I was making sure the link
Oh,
still worked.
wonderful. Thank you, Gigi. Wow.
So there's so many, whether it's job sites, and again, careful of the boxes, but places that you can be pulling current events going on, virtual conferences, lists of there's so much happening right now, and ways to meet your tribe and your future people you want to work with. So.
Wow. What a wonderful resource list. Pedro, go ahead and you can ask any of the questions.
Oh man, I'm trying to digest everything that was just said and relating it to all the questions here. Let's take a look here. I know Kalina was also asking about how do you deal with the pressure of having so many different career fields going on at one time, and what would you recommend to like maintain, I guess, your mental health while you're going through all these changes and finding new paths?
So to me, the struggle sometimes with that is that when you get caught up in someone else's story and not yours. So it's very easy. And I have this all the time because I have a lot of creative friends too who say, oh, I'm working on X. You must come help me. Right. And so you're thinking, oh, that sounds good. I should. So part of it is to think about the why. Why am I doing this? Simon Sinek has some great stuff on getting to why. And so it's very tempting with that next project or job, etc., and that you like the person, you want to work with it. I have systems that help me coordinate my work, and more I'm bringing on interns and other people who I can help them learn by doing chunks of projects. And then, but a lot of it is, am I willing to risk and do something and not be emotionally totally embedded in it? So if it doesn't work, I have a portfolio of things to move to. And also to not get caught up in other people's drama and other people's deadlines. Um, I've had two bosses now who, whenever someone gave them something to do in the physical, non-digital world, they would put it in a pile under their desk. And when it was asked for a second time, they would bring it back out. And about once a month, they would recycle the bottom 12 inches of the pile. You need to know digitally and in your head what's the part of the pile you should be working on. And also to be sitting down and saying, why am I doing most of the work I'm doing? Am I the best person to do that work? Is it time to stop doing things? To me, that's the hardest part. I'm in a collaborative art class on Tuesday mornings, which is good for my mental health. We sit and do art together around objects in our lives. And we were talking about jumping into new things yesterday. And to me, it's the jumping out. When do you stop doing something? And again, that's my question for this week as I talk retirement with my faculty chair. When do you move to the next? When do you let go? And part of it is that we oftentimes are so afraid things won't come back that we won't let them go. We won't close doors. Parker Palmer has some great stuff on life and careers. And there's the comment of, when a door opens to step through it. And he has a great series of conversations on the doors don't tend to obviously open, the doors close behind you. So at what point in time do you leave something that's not working for you? And if you have a portfolio of things to do, where do you want to invest your energy and time? Where does your heart beat faster versus the I have to do this?
Thank you, Gigi. This is amazing. Pedro, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, we'll take a look here. You've answered a lot of these throughout your conversation so far. We do have one asking, what lasting impacts do you think COVID-19 will have on the performing arts industry? What changes do you predict in live performance industry due to the digital age, especially the development and explosion in live streaming capabilities and interests?
Come to Amplify Music. We'll be talking about that for 3 days. And we just talked about that yesterday. So, one of the things is I've been traveling all over the world from my chair, that the connections, things that were local are popping up to be global. And a lot of artists are finding that they suddenly have a global community when they thought they were just civically dealing with X, music education, other areas. Um, we did a session yesterday on the 5 things changing in music. I think that was recorded by Indie Week out of Canada. Um, some of it is that we're not going back to where we were. That things weren't great in live performance before this. So this whole, we just have to get back to where we were in 2019. No. Venues were struggling, artists were struggling. There's a lot of folks rethinking what a venue is. Do I need a venue? Can I do collaborations and pop-ups? Do I have to be there in person? Do I have to be battling the real estate costs? One thing that's happening extensively is the central business districts in most cities and most major cities are half emptied out. And so there's all these new opportunities for venues who can now afford to be in downtowns, but there's new venues opening up already in some cities in the United States out in the suburbs. So you had a musical chairs going on where as we come back out, local artists may have much more benefit and touring might be really discombobulated for a while. So the kind of who does what to whom and who has power may change dramatically. The other thing that's happening is um, planning ahead is a pain in the ass right now. So insurance companies are not writing general liability policies so that you can't create something out into. So there's a lot of people doing holds on artists for new things that are coming up, and no one can concretely book it. So we had gotten into this. Sorry, I could talk for way too long on this, but we had gotten to this phase where people were booking festivals and things 6 and 12 months in advance. That may be not happening for a while, but it may be instead that you're going to have things suddenly happening 6 weeks out, low density. US insurance is weird. Canada's actually just stepped up to insure all this stuff yesterday, day before. So the who's taking risk, and then of all the new COVID protocols, will it be the artist? A lot of agents are going, do not put this on my artists. So the whole who's taking the risk is in massive negotiation right now. So I think the streaming side of this has been great for artists who've done it well, because they actually know who shows up versus who buys a ticket. And they've been able to really identify their super fans much better through a lot of this and have built up a relationship that could be then transportable and also in many cases is global. So I tend to say that there's 5 years of change happen in 1 year. And so which of these things will we be keeping, and which of the superpowers have you guys picked up this year that you can actually get as additional job elements? Because some people still can't figure out even how to share their screen on Zoom. How can you come in and bring these superpowers to organizations who now need to really adapt? I'm spending a lot of time on this topic, though.
I imagine, and this is why I brought you in, because you are at the leading edge in our industry in terms of like your perspective and your involvement with tech and all these innovation companies and all these things. Yeah, you bring your creative side as a background as well, but yeah,
Do follow
absolutely.
Sherry Who, guys. So if you're not following Sherry Who, she's also 25 years old. Oh my gosh. She's created an entire music journalism space around herself. She has Water and Music, but she's written for Forbes and Billboard and Music Business Worldwide. But now she's built her entire own little media empire with her own reporters at 25. So do follow Sherry Who. She's queen of this stuff and is just marvelous.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I know Pedro is compiling all these amazing links. Thank you, Pedro, for putting them all together afterwards. It would be great. And make sure you copy me on that as well. um, we are right at the top of our session time, but I'm happy to provide a few more minutes if anyone has any burning questions. I know you've all submitted them in the chat, but if anyone has something you would like to ask Gigi today, this is your chance to have her live answer your question. So speak now if you want to, or forever hold your peace.
And I guess the thing that I want to make sure that you guys think about, and I'm baffled more students aren't doing this, is informational interview now. People are home. And go to these virtual conferences. There are events all the time. Um, you could meet people, follow up with them. It's all there and possible. South by Southwest is in 2 weeks. It's all bleeping online. Use it as an opportunity to figure out, who do you want to talk to, because people will talk to you now. I wouldn't start with the hi, hire me. That should be like third conversation. But people are loving to talk about themselves, and you can go to so many online conferences right now. Amplify Music has a list, but so does Jaxta, CCE Global, Sync Summit. They all have lists of all these events going on that you can go to and meet people from all over the world and get inspired.
So, what are the top conferences you would recommend all of our students today make sure are on their calendars? So, South by Southwest is coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Amplify Music is in April. Any other one? Music Biz?
Music Biz is doing weekly stuff. Uh, uh, House of Blues Music Forward is having a whole bunch of things for college students, actually age 16 to 22. But Music Biz has weekly things that are available to go to. If you're not a member of Grammy U, oh my gosh, be a member of Grammy U. NARIP is having a bunch of regional events and online events, and depending on what you want to do. So if you want to be a music composer, ASMAC is doing stuff, and ASMAC is really reaching down into trying to work with younger creators. They're absolutely wonderful. So each of them is doing their own thing. Uh, was it GMC? There's another one that just did their big conference last week. I'm seeing very few college students going to these, and I must admit I am slightly baffled. Because it used to be the cost of travel, and you're in the middle of school and all that stuff. And the thing is, nicely reach out. And if you can go to Clubhouse if you have an Apple device and meet people too. It's a little bit addictive, or and maybe 10% of the people know what the bleep they're talking about, but that's another place to go.
There we go. Here you have it, guys. Thank you so much, Gigi. This has been wonderful. And, how can our students follow you in your journey? What are some mechanisms they can find you, subscribe to your blogs, website? Where can you send our students so they can continue following you?
I'm Gigi Johnson on Twitter. I tend to post things I'm doing there. I've got 2 different companies and they're doing different things. Amplify is part of Rethink Next. Next career.me, if you're interested in career stuff, you can add to that list and you'll get career updates. And we're going to launch a new program there. I post on LinkedIn a fair amount, and there's a fair amount of people who follow me on LinkedIn, and that's Gigi Johnson. Instagram, I post stuff, not all that interesting though. And I am on Clubhouse, so if you don't want to follow me on Clubhouse, you can find me on Clubhouse.
There you
And
go.
if you haven't been on Clubhouse, it's worth, you can get an invite fairly easily. Now there's 10 million people on it and it's still in beta. So, and I don't do anything on TikTok, so now you can't find me there.
Thank you, Gigi. This has been wonderful. What a treat for our students. Thank you for being here, for sharing your story. And we look forward to continuing to follow your journey and to learn from you. Thank
Take
you,
care,
Pedro,
guys.
for monitoring. And thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys. Have a great rest of everything.